Hey, y'all, and welcome back to our Beautiful Messy Lives podcast. This episode is going to be a really important one that I hope resonates with you and helps you a little bit in this season. So, my name is Emily, and I am the host and founder of Our Beautiful Messy Lives, a space and community for connection, authenticity, and diving into topics that resonate with us and really help people feel connected because we live in a world of hyper disconnection, despite access to so many forms of communication and connection. But my argument is that we're missing authentic, deeper, meaningful conversations, and we've lost the art of being able to really sit together in shared space. And so today, we're going to talk specifically about the election because we're coming up to being a week out from this really, really huge election in the United States. And I know that a lot of people, if not most everyone, is feeling pretty overwhelmed and not really sure how to stay both aware of what's going on and feeling safe and like their own mental health is being taken care of because everybody on every side, I think right now has a lot of anxiety and fear about where we're headed. Okay. So, just to kind of preface this conversation, I'm not going to talk about either candidate and I'm not going to focus on the politics. I'm going to focus on how you can make sure that you're taking care of your mental health and building relationships with the people in your life who maybe you feel like you've struggled to build relationships with or maintained relationship with this season because you are on opposite sides of the aisle. Okay. So I know that there's just so much global fatigue, fear, division right now. And I want you to take a deep breath with me and we'll breathe in and breathe out. And no matter where you are right now, I want you to know that you're safe and that we will figure this out. Okay. And you're not alone in your feeling. I think a lot of us are feeling scared and isolated. And so it is very, very normal to feel that way. And I just hope I can offer a slight bright spot in your day and help you think about something maybe you can do a little bit differently this next week, 2 weeks, however long this process is going to be drawn out to really make sure you're taking care of yourself. So, part of what I want you to hear today is that if you're listening to this, I encourage you to think about what it means to go high if the rest of the world is going low. Okay. When you turn on the news or when you talk to certain people or scroll social media, it can feel like there's so much hate and anger and fighting. And even on the news, they talk over each other constantly because just everybody wants their opinion, their voice, their story heard. Okay. And what I want you to really think about is how can you stay grounded, be kind, and offer the people around you as much respect as possible while also respecting yourself. Part of the struggle, and this has been true for the past 4 years, partly because of COVID, is that we're more isolated than ever. And I talked about this briefly on my introduction podcast, but so many of us, live in bubbles because we have removed friends from Facebook and our world has shrunk a lot because we may not be going into the office anymore. We may not be living in the same city as many of our coworkers. We've probably changed relationships. The way that we shop and engage with the world has changed so much in the past 4 years from being out and having to deal with people constantly to being able to stay home or be alone a lot more of the time. And while I think that there's amazing opportunity with the freedom that technology has given us, I do realize that more and more people are feeling lonely and isolated, and it is hard to find community. It's hard to find a place where you can feel seen and heard and truly connected. It's very different to get on a Zoom call or to get on a on a Snapchat group or to be messaging someone online. And it's different when you're in person and having real, authentic conversation. And so I really believe that isolation is part of what we're going through right now is the struggle of how do we reconnect with each other? And that gets exasperated when politically we're also extremely divided. And so you're not really sure where or how to connect. Okay. So we need connection to survive and thrive. And how we communicate with each other matters. It really does matter. The words, language, body language, and methods we use to connect. People remember more about how they felt when they're with you than exactly what happened in the interaction. And if you make someone feel unsafe, or if you feel unsafe, that's just never going to end well. So be mindful of the language you use. Right now, especially in our polarized times, it's a lot of us versus them, and there's a lot of name calling. And while I understand the argument of wanting to be able to call people out for things that we disagree with, I think it so quickly can spiral into, well, they are this or they are that, or how dare they challenge me or believe this. And it feels like an attack on our identity. And we feel like we have to attack their identity because we can't quite reconcile what we're seeing and feeling. Right. And again, all of that is totally understandable. And I am guilty of it. My partner's guilty of it. We have a lot of conversations where I have to check us and say, look, we cannot condemn all of these people or say that somehow we are all that different when I hear very similar things on both sides of the aisle. And sometimes, even if I disagree on a political issue, there might be something else that I can see that's beautiful in this person, and vice versa. I know not everybody's going to agree with me on everything, but that doesn't mean that that's my whole self, right? We are more than our political identity. And I think we've forgotten that. I think we think if you are on this side or this side, that means that you are a slew of other things, and it makes somebody very non-dimensional, right? And we are multidimensional beings. We have so many elements to our personality and who we are and why we believe what we believe. At the end of the day, there are real fears, real concerns, real people on the other side of that conversation. And it's easy to forget and again put them into a broad category rather than see the individual in front of you and recognize that they're going through their own journey. They have their own story, their own background, their own needs, desires, fears that may or may not be being met. And in our world of over information, a lot of those things get perpetuated. The fear gets stoked, the anger gets stoked, and so people are living out of um hyper reactivity. Okay. So I believe it's our job, your job, my job, to slow down, take a breath, and remember that, and try to be somebody who's acting out of mindful kindness, sets boundaries. It's okay to set a boundary, but isn't necessarily condemning, isn't saying we can't be friends, isn't shutting down the conversation simply because we disagree, but explains your side, listens to other people, and moves forward in a way that can maintain or strengthen a relationship. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a few different ways that you can practice having conversation with different people who might disagree with you, as well as create space for yourself. So the first one is just having basic empathy. Okay. And I know most of you probably are rolling your eyes because you know what empathy is. We've all heard it. But I do want to make the distinction again between empathy and sympathy, right? Sympathy is saying, "Oh, poor them," or "Oh, that sucks." I can kind of see it, but like that doesn't change how I feel about them. It's pity. Um, where empathy is saying, "Oh, wow, that is something that I really don't understand." Or maybe I do, maybe I've been through it, but if it's something you haven't been through, really trying to understand how that must have felt, what the underlying motivation is. Was there fear? Was there anger? Was there hurt? What what really happened to this person? And what is it that they're trying to communicate that's beneath the words and more about how they feel? Because as humans, our emotions are very important to how we make decisions. We like to think we're logical and rational and using our brains all the time. But at the end of the day, most of us are reacting emotionally. And that's okay. But we have to remember that when we're talking to somebody and really listen and tune into what is it that they're really saying here? What is the feeling and the motivation behind the words that they're saying? And this taps into active listening. When you're listening to someone, instead of just hearing a buzzword or hearing a phrase that maybe triggers you or sets you off, or again, makes you think, oh, they must be in this camp. Instead of doing that, say, okay, I heard that. I'm going to put it in a bucket, but I'm going to continue to listen and try to see beneath the surface. And next, asking open ended questions, saying, can you tell me more about that? Can you explain that situation to me? Can you share with me what it is you really feel like you're missing or needing? Where is this coming from? Ask for stories, ask for elaboration, ask for them to explain their own part of the story. Because another thing that I hear a lot right now is, again, talking about something else, but it's outside of us. It's, well, that thing, that concept is not okay, right? Or that idea is not okay. Versus, okay, sure, theoretical conversations we can have all day, but you can't really relate to theory. Bring it down to the personal. Okay, why? What experience have you had that has led to that conclusion? Can you explain what you learned as a kid? Can you explain why that bothers you so much? Can you explain a situation that you've been in? Or share a story of your own and say, look, I hear you and I can understand theoretically maybe how you got there. But for me, this is personal because X, Y, and Z. I have this experience, or I know somebody who has this experience, or thinking about it differently, making it more about the person. Because again, we can't argue theory in big picture terms. I mean, you can, but it's not going to make you feel connected because it's in the head, like I said, which is not really where we actually live most of the time. Most of the time we live in our emotional centers. Do I feel good? Do I feel safe? Do I feel loved? Do I feel scared? Am I angry? Am I hurt? And that's what's motivating us. And so if you can tune into that with somebody and connect on that level, a lot of times you can see that you're actually much more common than you're much more, have a lot more in similar in common than you realize. um and so trying to ask open-ended questions and get people to tell their story and then listen, or share your own story if you feel safe and feel like that other person is listening. And if it's somebody you feel safe with, say, hey, can we try to just make it, talk with I language? Can we make this story bound? I want to hear where you are in this. Again, we don't need to hash the theories. The news is doing that all day, every day about, sensationalizing what's going on, who said what, what's going on. But again, how does it impact you? Why does it make you feel the way that it does? Okay. Then this is kind of where you're going to start to get into, okay, you've had of empathy, you're actively listening, and you have asked them open-ended questions. And sometimes the person on the other end may not be receptive to that. And that's okay. Okay. Not everybody is going to be able to have meaningful conversation. And especially in our divisive world right now, some people are just out being mean and hurtful because they're scared or they're angry. And you can both recognize that and say, I'm so sorry they're feeling that way. And you can disengage. Okay. So here's where it gets important to be able to agree to disagree. And again, I know as I say that, I flinch a little bit because I know that part of the argument in our political world right now is that the two candidates are both extreme. And so it's somehow a crime to allow somebody to believe the other side, right? Like, I can't agree to disagree because fundamentally this is challenging the fundamentals of democracy or the fundamentals of what I believe to be true. Okay. And I hear that. I understand that. But if you are able to, with somebody, say, whoa, 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 we obviously do not agree on this. We need to agree that we're just going to be different and still try to love each other through that. Focus on the things that we like about each other. And for now, set this aside. Set boundaries about what we can talk about. Maybe we really just can't talk politics. Maybe we can only see each other in certain settings. Maybe we need a break this season and we can circle back after this election cycle is over. But figuring out what it is that you need and then communicating that, because not everybody deserves all of your time and energy. You can't convince somebody who is disagreeing with you to agree with you. So don't spend time and energy arguing with people and getting caught up in trying to fix all the problems, because a week out from the election, that's just not going to happen. But you can gracefully say, obviously, we can't talk about this. So either we're going to need to pivot and just decide that our friendship, our relationship is more important than our political divides right now, and we'll figure this out. Or gracefully say, right now, we really should not be connecting because it's not good for either one of us. Okay. Um, but the way to maintain a relationship, if you are not able to talk politically, is to find and highlight common ground. What is it that you liked about this person prior? Why Why are they in your life? How are you connected? What commonalities do you share? Do you both love nature? Do you both love a sport? Do you both love an art? Are you passionate about something? Try to remind each other what it is that you connected over in the first place, right? And if it's family, say, you know what? I can love you. You are my aunt, uncle, brother, sister, mother, and I have so much respect for you and I love you and I'm so thankful for these things. And try to just remember what it is about that person that is valuable and beautiful. And remember that even if you disagree, there are real emotions, real reasons, real experiences that are dictating their decisions. Okay. And from their perspective, they need to also remember that you also have this different experiences as to how you got to where you are. And so if you can hold that, you can maintain hard relationships and just recognize that sometimes things happen and we disagree. And in most years prior to the last 8 to 12 years of politics, we've been able to do that. We've been able to maintain relationships across the aisle. But because of the world, and I think there's so many factors from globalization to overconnection to social media to just how extreme some of our language and just energy has gotten over the past 12 years. Um, it's gotten a lot harder, I think, to do that. But we used to be able to. We can disagree with somebody and still respect them. I think we think that everybody needs to agree with us, but that's not true. Again, I said this yesterday in the intro. I don't want a world of people just like me. That's so boring. I want contrast. I want challenge. I want people who make me think differently and push me and make me have to stand up for what I believe in. But there has to be basic respect and safety in that. And so again, if you don't feel like you're being respected, or if you don't feel like it's safe, or you feel like at this season that you need some space to make sure that you're taking care of your own being, that is perfectly understandable. But that doesn't mean you condemn or name call or put this person into a no-go category as if there's some foreign entity that doesn't have the same level of respect and humanity that you do. Okay. Because again, that's one of the things that I keep hearing is we want to put other people down and put them in a category of less than, rather than saying it's just different and remembering that this is a human being is going through very similar ups, downs, fears, emotions, and has their own story that you may or may not know. Okay. So then lastly is just kind of what I just said is being kind. Stop the name calling. I'm tired of the language that I'm hearing right now in the world in general on both sides of the aisle. Everybody is so angry and scared and freaking out, but name calling, putting people down, and condemning any group of people is not helping anything. Because think about it. If you are name called and you call someone back, it's just a tit for tat situation. And how do you get out of that? Now there's more and more hurt building, there's more and more resentment, there's more and more fear. And of course, it builds and builds. And of course, it gets worse. But if you can stop and say, I'm not going to tolerate that, I can respect you as a person, but I'm not going to put up with being name called, and I'm not going to go low enough to name call you. I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. We'll be so much better off. Because fast forward to maybe a time when we don't feel as angry, that person can look back and say, you know what? They never called me a name. They were never mean. They were always kind to me. They were always willing to communicate or to talk. And you might be able to repair a relationship. If somebody feels like they left the relationship on relatively amicable terms, even if you disagree, there's at least potential for repair. But if you both go down swinging and calling each other names and doing more and more hurtful things towards each other, most likely that relationship will never be repaired, or it's a much harder path to walk. And so if you can refrain from being mean, set boundaries, create spaces you need to, but be kind in the process, it leaves the door open for repairing relationships in the future. Okay. So, my call to action today and my key reminder is if you haven't already voted, and early voting is an option, and or next 2 weeks or a week from Tuesday, get out and go vote. Okay. Make your voice heard because that is the way that we make a change in the United States. And that is how we get through this one way or another. And at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, remember to be kind to yourself and give yourself the space you need and find those people that you can talk to and feel like do see you and find your community because right now we do need those people that agree with us and make us feel seen, safe, heard, valued. Okay. But also remember to reach out to those people in your life that maybe are across the aisle. Check in on them too. Say, hey, how are you doing? I know this election cycle is really, really stressful and we're all feeling it. I just wanted to say hi, let you know I'm thinking about you, and I hope you're doing okay. Do you want to have a conversation? Do you want to get coffee? And then maybe pick something that you love to do together. It doesn't have to be about politics. You could go to the movies. You could go play golf. You could go do an art project. You could have a party at your house. Something just fun to connect with people. Okay. And maybe set a ground rule. We're not going to talk about politics, but I just want to make sure that everybody's okay and that we can still maintain relationship. And so, what I really encourage you to do is think about how you can connect with somebody across the aisle, do something fun, check in, and make sure that everybody's doing okay. Because this is a really, really, really scary time for a lot of us. I know that. But that doesn't mean we need to continue to isolate, name call, and further the division. So go vote. Make sure you have a community around you that you do feel like you're seen and supported by and can process some of this because it is a lot going on and we need to be able to talk about it. But then three, check on the people across the aisle, family, friends, loved ones, people in your community, and at least say, hey, thinking about you, wanting to make sure you're doing okay. Because again, we all need people in our lives. And when all the dust settles and the world is back to quote unquote normal, whatever normal means, people remember the energy of who you are. They remember if you were kind. They remember if you at least tried to communicate with them. So be the person that people remember as being kind and willing to try to engage in hard conversation. We can't continue to just pull away and push away anything that is uncomfortable or different than what we believe in. That's just going to create more and more division, fear, violence. And I just don't know how we move forward if we're not able to talk and find common ground. And remember that we're all dealing with our own stories, our own fears, our own hurts, our own hopes and dreams, and that politics is a reflection of that. And again, we may not agree, but remembering the underlying motive helps us be able to connect at that human level and say, I see you and I hear you. And we can talk about that without it having to be a political conversation. So, yeah, that is all that I have for you about this. And if it is helpful, if you found this episode helpful, you can always share it with your family or friends that you think might need to hear a little bit of extra encouragement or just some basic tips on how to have hard conversations. I know it's still hard and sometimes feels impossible, but especially with the holidays coming up, I just want to make sure that everybody feels like you do have people in your life who care and that regardless of what happens in a week and a half, you are okay. We are okay. Take a breath and know that you can create space for yourself. That is perfectly understandable in this season, but that other people are also hurting on all sides of everywhere, and that we need to remain open to connection because that is what I think ultimately will heal us, help us build a better future, and get us into 2025. So I hope that everybody has a great day. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I would love to hear any feedback or thoughts or questions. So feel free to comment on this post, or you can always message me on any social media platform, and I will get back to you. Have a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in.